My 7 brothers would rather take turns laboring in the mines than let me go hungry for a single meal. But the moment I woke, I tore my eldest brother's year-long bond of service in two before them all. Come home. Every one of you, we have only 8 mouths to feed. Are you telling me 12 mu of land can keep us alive? Hey everyone, it is Xiao Yua girl wakes from a 3-day fever to find her eldest brother about to sign a year of his life away in a stone quarry for 3 dan of grain. Then she looks around at the broken roof, the 2 rusty hose, the chipped cooking pot, and out at fresh wheel ruts on an abandoned road. Her 7 brothers are waiting for a plan. How did she do it? Let's go. 3 months after my father's old case was finally settled, eldest brother was ready to sign away a year of labor in a stone quarry for 3 dan of coarse grain. I had only just awakened from a burning fever. I could barely keep my shoes on my feet, yet the first thing I did was tear that labor contract in 2. Rain slipped through a crack in the ruined post station roof and struck me square between the brows. When I opened my eyes, my head swam and my throat felt scraped raw with sand. Beyond the reed curtain, someone was reading a contract aloud in a slow, droning voice that made my chest tighten. Blackstone Quarry hires laborers for 1 year. 3 dan of coarse grain shall be advanced upon signing. Once inside the quarry, no worker may leave without the steward's permission. Illness or injury suffered during labor shall be borne by the worker himself. Should the contract be broken before its term, twice the grain advanced must be repaid. Steward Lu snapped the paper in his hands. Shen Yan Yan, if you've made up your mind, put your thumbprint here. Your family is near scraping soot from the bottom of the cooking pot. Not everyone would advance you 3 dan of grain. Outside there was a brief silence. When eldest brother spoke, his voice was hoarse. Give us half the grain first. My sister is ill, we need a physician. I shot upright. The memories left in this body and the memories of my former life surged together, pounding against my temples. It was the 17th year of Jinghe in the Great Ning Dynasty. Because father had been implicated in an old case, the Shen family's property had been confiscated. In the end, the 8 of us, all grown, were spared prison, but our household registration was transferred to Shikao Township in Amping County. It was far from the county seat, the soil was thin, the roads miserable. The authorities allotted us an abandoned courier shelter beside Qingxi Hollow and 12 mu of barren hillside. No one else wanted 3 months. That was all it had taken for several chests of belongings to dwindle into half a sack of millet. In my previous life, I had also made my living from things that grew out of the earth. I knew many crops, understood something of grain storage and farm trade, had seen harvest years when grain sold for next to nothing, and lean years when a single measure of rice could make a household see red. But at that moment, I had no grand scheme. I knew only one thing: eldest brother could not go. I threw aside the reed curtain. Cold wind struck me full in the face. Only when my foot sank into the mud did I realize I had not even pulled the heel of one shoe on properly. All 7 of my brothers turned at once. Eldest brother Shen Yanen was nearest. He caught me by the arm. Jihei, why are you out of bed? I did not answer. I reached past him, snatched the contract from in front of Steward Lu, and pulled. What are you doing? The paper did not make much noise when it tore. One rip was not enough for me. I folded the halves together and tore them again. Steward Lu's face went livid. Shen Ji-he. Truth be told, I had almost no strength. My hands shook after the tearing, and I had to brace myself against the table to stay standing. My brother is not taking this work. You have only a few days of grain left. If he doesn't work, what will you eat? 5th brother Shen Yanwu looked grim as well. He had always been blunt, and now the veins stood out at his temples. Little sister, don't force yourself to act brave. Eldest can work 1 year. That is still better than all of us running out of food. Eldest brother glared at him. Enough. Am I wrong? 5th brother stiffened his neck. Even if we stretch the rice in that pot until it turns to water, how many meals do you think are left? The shelter fell silent. No one answered, because he was right. And if I was being truthful, my own stomach had gone hollow with doubt. In my former life, I had handled plenty of accounts and done plenty of business. But now I had no shop, no goods, no capital. I did not even own a pair of shoes that kept the rain out. I looked around. 2 rusty hoes leaned in a corner. There was a short axe, an old abacus with most of its paint worn away. Half the roof leaked, and the cooking pot by the hearth had a chip missing from its rim. But outside ran an old courier road abandoned for years. Fresh wheel ruts lay pressed into the rain-softened earth. I stared at them for a long while. "We're not going to the quarry," I said. Fifth brother immediately demanded, "And then what?" Then I swallowed against my dry throat. "First, boil water." 7 pairs of eyes fixed on me. Fifth brother's expression was the finest of them all. "Boil water." "Yes. We're one bad meal from starving, and you want hot water." I gave him a look. "Do I strike you as the sort who only thinks of her own cup?" "At present, very much so." I opened my mouth to answer. The world went black. The next instant, everything spun away. When I woke again, I was back on the straw mat with half a dark grain flatbread stuffed between my lips. Sixth brother, Shen Yanhe, crouched by the fire. The moment he saw my eyes open, he handed me water. Awake. I chewed twice. My first question was, "The contract. Burned. Who burned it?" "Eldest brother." I finally breathed easier. Then I looked down at the bread in my hand. "Is there any more?" Sixth brother paused and slowly drew another half from inside his sleeve. "Only this." I stared at it without taking it. "You eat it. I am not hungry." His stomach growled before the words had even settled. I burst out laughing. The tips of his ears reddened bit by bit. It was the first time I had laughed since coming into this world. Then, without warning, my nose stung. He broke my own half in 2 and pressed a piece into his hand. "We eat together." Outside the reed curtain, eldest brother was quietly assigning people to gather dry wood. Second brother was sharpening the axe whose edge was nearly rolled flat. Third brother crouched over the old abacus, counting what little grain remained. Fourth brother was writing on a broken doorboard with a stub of charcoal. Fifth brother cursed the wretched weather loudly enough to offend heaven, yet obediently kept hauling stones. Seventh brother had already run off along the old road to see where it led. I suddenly thought I had no idea what would happen 3 days from now. But today's meal had to be earned today. I told fourth brother to write 4 characters across the old doorboard. "Hot water, rest your feet." Fourth brother, Shen Yanli, held the charcoal and stared at the half-peeled board for a long time, his brows drawn tight. "I studied for more than 10 years, he said. I used to write policy essays, interpret the classics. And now the first signboard I write says, 'Hot water, rest your feet.'" I considered this. "Make the characters handsome." Fourth brother closed his eyes for a moment. Beside him, fifth brother laughed so hard he nearly dropped a stone on his own foot. That morning we boiled 2 pots of water and griddled more than a dozen dark flour flatbreads mixed with wild greens. We sold not a single one. The sun crawled from one side of the shelter to the other. 6 travelers and 2 donkey carts passed. Some drank the water, thanked us, and continued on. Others asked the price of the bread and shook their heads the moment they heard 2 copper coins apiece. I sat in the doorway counting the stack of cakes as they grew colder and colder, and my heart sank with them. Fifth brother squatted beside me, poking the mud with a stick. "I told you, poor men on the road save every copper they can. Who would spend money on flatbread?" I ignored him. He poked the mud twice more. "So what now?" "I don't know." "What?" I turned to him. "Haven't you been saying I was putting on a brave face?" "Fine, I admit it, I don't know." Fifth brother's mouth fell open for once. No answer came out. Then sixth brother's head appeared from behind the stove. "What if we cut them?" Fifth brother and I both looked at him. He shifted awkwardly. "Cut 1 flatbread into 4 pieces. Keep the hot water free. Let travelers taste a small piece first. If they like it, they can buy a whole one." Fifth brother rubbed his chin. "Isn't that giving food away?" Sixth brother said softly. "They won't sell well cold anyway." I sprang to my feet. "Cut them." Not long after the first plate went out, a mule driver drinking water casually took a piece. He chewed twice, then reached for another. Fifth brother immediately pulled the plate back. One taste. Per M. Ann. The mule driver glared at him. Didn't you say the tasting was free? The tasting is free? No one said you could eat yourself full for free. The man laughed, fished out 2 coppers, and bought a whole flatbread. All 8 of us stared at those 2 copper coins with more solemn attention than if they had been gold. Third brother, Shen Yaming, picked one up and bit it. I said nothing. Fifth brother stared at him. Third brother, weren't you the one who hated seeing people bite coins? Third brother wiped the copper clean. Back then, our family had money. No one laughed after that. But by dusk, our fortunes turned. A dull crack sounded from the far end of the old road. A mule cart loaded with mountain goods had tilted into the mud. Its axle had snapped. The driver circled the cart twice. At last he spotted the axe in second brother's hands and shouted toward us. Any of you know how to mend a cart? Second brother, Shenyan Xiu, did not answer at once. He walked over, crouched down, and ran his hand over the broken axle. He was a man of few words. When his hands were on wood, he became quieter still. After a while, he looked up. I can mend it, but I'll need a length of hard timber. Where am I to find hard timber here? Second brother turned his head. His gaze landed on the only solid crossbeam still holding up the western half of our shelter. The entire family went silent. Me heart gave a hard thump. If we took down that beam, one fierce wind might bring half the shelter crashing down for good. The driver understood as well. He turned to leave. Wait, I called. He looked back. We can take down the beam, I said, but you pay us in grain and you give us a bundle of hemp rope. If we botch the repair, the loss is ours. If we mend it and the cart breaks again on the road because of the section we repaired, we'll return the grain. The man studied me. Your roof is one beam away from coming down and you still dare promise a refund. I was not nearly as certain as I sounded. Then second brother spoke. If I mend it, it will not break there again. His tone was flat and calm. He turned toward him. He had already crouched beside the cart again and was measuring the broken axle as if he had said nothing remarkable at all. Somehow that steadied me. The man laughed. Very well. 12 jin of coarse grain and a bundle of hemp rope. If you truly get me to Yushui town before noon tomorrow, I'll add another 2 jin. His name was Gu Xingzhou. He regularly traveled the road between Amping County and Yushui town. Fourth brother looked faintly pained when he began writing an agreement on the back of the old door board. We need a written contract to mend a cart. Third brother did not even look up. 12 jin of grain can feed us for several days. I added, put it in writing, otherwise later everyone remembers a different bargain. Fourth brother said no more. When second brother took down the beam, fifth and seventh held it from below. I stood too close and eldest brother pulled me backward by the shoulder. Stay back. I am not touching anything. The beam doesn't care. I was about to tell him I was not made of paper when a shower of wood shavings fell from above and slipped straight down my collar. I shut my mouth and retreated 2 steps. Zhu Xingzhou saw it. The corner of his mouth twitched. I pretended not to notice by nightfall. The cart was repaired. Gu Xingzhou loaded several stones onto it and tested the wheels himself. The axle held firm. He unloaded the promised grain, then used charcoal to sketch the old road's course on our doorboard. Ever since South Bridge collapsed, most merchant carts have been using the Dongping ferry. The Liang family built storehouses and a market ground there. They charge for the crossing, charge for resting a cart, and charge again if you want to set out goods. The people who still use this old road are mostly small peddlers, farmers, and short-haul laborers who don't want to pay all those fees. He pointed at the mud in front of our shelter. What they need isn't anything rare, hot water, travel food, a cart mended, fodder for their beasts, and a patch of ground where their wheels won't sink to the axle. Give them that, and it is enough. I took a charcoal stub and wrote everything down. Then Gu Xingzhou noticed that I had recorded even the grain our own family had eaten that day. You put your own meals in the accounts, of course, afraid you'll eat yourselves poor. We are already poor. He laughed before he could stop himself. I felt no shame. What was there to be ashamed of in being poor? The real foolishness was having nothing left but soot in the cooking pot and still trying to dine on pride. That night, sixth brother finally cooked a pot of porridge thick enough to deserve the name. Fifth brother finished his first bowl. When he reached for a second, his hand stopped at the rim of the pot. Without thinking, he looked around at the rest of us. When grain had been scarce, we had all grown used to leaving the table not quite full. Sixth brother pushed the ladle into his hand. "There is more in the pot." Fifth brother still did not move. Eldest brother lowered his head and kept eating. "Have another bowl." Only then did fifth brother serve himself. I looked down at the grains floating in my own bowl and suddenly thought that sight felt more like our first true profit than those 2 copper coins had. The next day, Gushing Joe brought the extra 2 jin of grain. He also tossed us a small sack of mixed beans. "Sweepings from a grain shop in town. They don't look pretty. If you want them, take them." Fifth brother grabbed a handful. "Can these even be planted?" I almost said we would have to sort and test them before we knew. The words stopped at my lips. "We'll try." It was the first time I did not pretend I knew everything. That same day, the village headman, Tian Bao Quan, came to register our wasteland. A steward from the Liang family came with him. When Steward Liang saw grain stacked beneath our shelter, he smiled with syrupy contempt. 2 days here and you are already playing at trade. Shame a little business won't plow your land for you." Those 12 mu of stony slope the county gave the Shen family would make even an ox twist an ankle. I did not argue because when I finally stood before those 12 mu, I discovered he had actually been polite. The eastern side was choked with tough kogon grass, its roots knotted through the earth. Like ropes strike the western side where the hoe and stones came up before soil. The northern ground lay low, holding a stagnant pool of blackish water. Fifth brother swung his hoe a dozen times until the web of his hand went numb. He kicked a stone aside. "I refuse to believe we can't clear it. If 1 month isn't enough, we'll take 2. I crouched and scooped up a fistful of earth. Everything I had learned about soil in my former life turned through my mind. But standing in a real field with mud wedged under my nails, and the wind blowing my hair into my mouth, I suddenly understood that knowledge on paper and dirt in your hands were 2 different beasts. I dug out a small patch, then walked to the waterlogged edge to inspect the weeds. Fifth brother followed me. "Well, see anything?" "I do." His eyes lit up. "How do we fix it? This land is truly dreadful." Fifth brother stared at me. Seventh brother laughed so hard he had to squat down. I glared at him. "What are you laughing at? If you are so capable, you do it." "I am not capable." "I am only the runner," seventh brother Shen Yanchuan immediately straightened. "Please carry on." In the end, the plan was not mine alone. Second brother said the large stones from the west could line drainage ditches and the smaller ones could pave the road. Sixth brother said that since the north always held water, we should dig shallow channels first, rather than rush to fill it all in. Third brother counted our grain and said we could not possibly turn all 12 mu at once and still feed everyone doing the work. Eldest brother made the final decision. We clear 7 mu first. The remaining 5 can wait. Fifth brother still looked aggrieved. "What if people ask?" "It'll sound shameful," I asked. "Will those people eat in your place?" "Number, will they harvest your grain for you?" "Number. Then why do you care?" He considered this. Fair enough. So we planted mixed beans on the eastern ground, tried millet and radish in the north, and hauled every stone we cleared from the west toward the shelter. On the first day, we did not even clear half a mu. Steward Liang rode past on a donkey and mocked us for being so poor we had started treating stones like treasure. Fifth brother was furious enough to chase him. I grabbed the back of his belt. He twisted around. "Why are you pulling me?" "What exactly are you planning to do when you catch him?" "Reason with him." "You are still holding a hoe." Fifth brother looked down silently. He put the hoe on the ground. Seventh brother supplied the final thrust. "Fifth brother, your instrument of reason looks rather heavy." That night 2 blisters rose on my palms. When no one was looking, I pierced them with a needle. The pain made my face twist. I had no idea when eldest brother came up behind me. "Does it hurt?" "Number, your eyes are watering." The wind. He did not expose the lie. He merely set a small tin of herbal salve beside me. Only after I rubbed it into my palms did I realize it was probably what he had been saving for the sores on his own feet. When the second spring rain came, the crushed stone in front of our shelter finally proved its worth. The roads around us turned to mud deep enough to swallow half a shoe. Our little strip of stone, however, held firm beneath cartwheels. Two peddlers who had only meant to rest their animals ended up paying second brother to repair their cart shafts as well. Sixth brother sold 5 extra flatbreads. Fifth brother squatted beside the stone road for a long while. Then he suddenly asked me, "When is Steward Liang coming by again?" "Why?" "I'd like to invite him to admire our precious stones." I laughed aloud. He could carry a grudge ladder. I discovered I could too. We did not sow the whole sack of beans. I picked out 100 and set them to sprout. 3 days later, only a little over 60 had germinated. Fifth brother crouched beside me counting 61, 62, 63. That is all. I pinched an unsprouted bean between my fingers. At least we didn't bury the whole sack before finding out. Sixth brother sorted out the shriveled beans. "We can grind these and feed them to the chickens." "What chickens?" "The ones I am going to barter for." He saved flatbreads for several days and really did trade them to a passing farm wife for 4 half-grown hens. Second brother built a coop from scrap wood. Sixth brother crouched at the entrance, running his hand over the crude fence for a long time. Then he asked softly, "They're really mine to tend from now on?" Before I could answer, fifth brother stuck his head in from behind him. "Would you rather give them to me?" Sixth brother instantly hugged the broken feed scoop to his chest. The whole family laughed. I had prepared a speech about how careful he was and how suited he was to tending small creatures. All at once, I did not want to say any of it. "They're yours," I said instead. "When they start laying, save the first egg for me." Sixth brother nodded. 2 would be better. He looked up. "Little sister." "What?" "We have 4 chickens." "I know. They are not laying yet. I am reserving mine early." In my old life, I had never guarded food, but after coming here, perhaps I truly had learned the fear of hunger. Even when there was still food in the pot, I would sometimes wrap the last small piece of flatbread and hide it beside my pillow without thinking. The first time Sixth brother found one, he held up the piece, already hard as wood. "Why are you hiding food again?" "For when I get hungry at night." "There is more in the pot." "It is different." "How is it different?" I could not answer. He watched me for a moment and did not press. He took the hard flatbread away, steamed it soft, then put it back into my hands. In the days after the bean shoots broke the soil, I ran to the fields nearly 3 times a day. The first time I truly felt like a farmer was one evening when I was squatting at the edge of the field studying leaves, my trouser legs caked in mud. When I finally tried to go home, I could not find the shoes I had tucked beside the ridge that morning. Seventh brother came running up behind me, swinging them by their laces. "Looking for these." "Where did you find them?" "The wind blew them into the ditch." I reached out. He pulled them back. 1 copper. I stared at him. Shen Yanchuan. A jest. He immediately presented them with both hands. The first great wind came earlier than we expected. Seventh brother had gone out to check the fields that night. He came racing back with his voice almost gone. "The seedlings are going down." All of us threw on clothes and rushed outside. Fifth brother grabbed straw mats and tried to cover every bean shoot. I stopped him at once. "Don't smother them all." "Then what do we do?" "Wait the windward side." Second brother was already driving thin bamboo stakes into the earth. Eldest brother shouted for seventh to fetch rope. Sixth brother barred the chicken coop and ran over to help. The wind hit hard enough to stagger us. I planted 1 foot straight into a ditch and came up muddy to the thigh. Fifth brother hauled me out, still finding breath to say, "Are you saving the seedlings or fertilizing the field yourself?" "Shut your mouth!" By morning, most of the bean shoots were leaning sideways, but at least they had not snapped. We stood at the edge of the field and looked over them. No one made a grand speech. Fifth brother only crouched, straightened the worst spent shoot, and muttered, "Well, we didn't break our backs for nothing." Not long after that, I suffered my first real failure. There was a low patch in the northern field. I judged that its drainage was good enough and insisted we plant beans there. After several days of rain, the roots rotted through the whole patch. The moment I pulled the first yellowing plant from the soil, my heart dropped into my stomach. Fifth brother came over carrying his hoe. "What is it?" "Root rot." He examined the plants, Shuld listened to you, and planted less. I said dully, "This is the patch I insisted we plant." He paused. "Then we should have known better than to listen to you." I looked up and glared. He had already turned away to dig another drainage channel. "What are you staring at me for? We fix it next time. Aren't you the one who loves keeping accounts? Put this in the ledger too." My nose suddenly stung. In the end, all I managed was, When we returned that evening, I truly did write a line in the farming book. Northern hollow drainage insufficient. Beans planted in error. 3/10 of a mew of seedlings lost. I did not write, "The weather was bad, I had judged wrongly." Once I admitted it, the failure hurt less. The Shen family truly made an enemy of Tian Baoquan over the spring labor levy. When the yellow notice was posted outside our shelter, every one of my 7 brothers was named. Each had been ordered to work 10 days. Most households in the village sent 1 man, 2 at most. Eldest brother read the notice once. "This is aimed at us." Fourth brother, however, was staring at the small line at the bottom. "Public road repair, labor to be recorded by household work, subject to inspection upon completion." Before I could speak, he turned toward Tian Baoquan. "Headman Tian, which road are we repairing?" Tian Baoquan waved him off impatiently. "You'll know when you arrive," fourth brother asked. "Who records the labor?" "I do." "And who inspects it?" "I do." Fifth brother muttered beside us. "Then why bother asking with one mouth? He can count it however he pleases." I was about to suggest carving wooden tallies when second brother suddenly said, "I'll carve them." Everyone turned to him. He pointed at the notice. 1 tally for each person, date. Place work done, we keep our own record. Fourth brother's eyes brightened. "And 1 master tally. I'll copy everything into a book as well." I closed the mouth I had just opened. Fifth brother looked at me. "What were you about to say?" "Nothing." "You thought of it too, didn't you?" "Number." "Then why do you look as though someone stole the words out of your mouth? I was wondering why you've spoken so much today." The next day, when we reached Dongping Ferry, we discovered the matter was indeed crooked. The so-called public road was a private incline behind a Liang family warehouse, leading nowhere except their own storehouse. A sign over the warehouse gate even read, "No entry without business." Fourth brother's hands shook with anger. Tian Baoquan merely said, "If I say it is public, then it is public." I was about to step forward when fourth brother spread the official notice in front of him first. "If it is public, then please add 1 sentence here, headman. From this day onward, carts and livestock from every village may use this incline without charge, and the Liang family may not bar the way." The whole place went still. I nearly laughed. Fourth brother had once cared more than anyone about a scholar's dignity. Now he had learned to use a man's own words as a cord around his ankles. Naturally, Tian Baoquan did not dare write it. Humiliated and furious, he sent us instead to clear an old drainage ditch along the eastern stretch of the abandoned courier road, a ditch no one had tended in years. "If it isn't cleared in 10 days, not 1 day of your labor will count." Fifth brother stared at the ditch. The stench alone could drive a man back 3 paces. His face turned green. "What is this supposed to be?" Seventh brother pinched his nose. "Retribution." Whose retribution? Or as those 10 days were truly miserable. The sludge rose past our calves and was packed with rotting grass and stones. When we returned at night, even sixth brother complained that we stank and refused to let anyone step straight into the shelter. But second brother traced the line of the old stone edging, and seventh found a blocked outlet buried inside a thorn thicket. Once we knew where the ditch was meant to run, clearing it became much faster than digging blindly. Fourth brother set up a small table beside the ditch and recorded the labor of anyone who wished him to. An old farmer held out his wooden tally. "How much do you charge to write all this?" Fourth brother stared at him for a long moment. Uncle, nothing. Truly nothing, nothing. He lowered his head and kept writing. After a moment he added, just remember which day you worked and where. Do not claim more than you did, but do not let anyone count less either. That night, fourth brother did not complain that 10 years of study had ended with him sitting beside a foul ditch. He only sharpened his charcoal stick to a finer point. 10 days later, the ditch was clear. That very night, a storm broke. By morning, Dongping Landing had turned into a muddy pond, while the old road on our side drained quickly and remained passable. When the first cart, avoiding the mud, stopped in front of our shelter, fifth brother stood beneath the eaves staring as though he had seen a spirit. Then came a second cart, a third as more people arrived. Luo Chunyang appeared carrying 2 jars of pickled radish on a shoulder pole. She did not dare set up at once. First she asked us, "Is your scale honest?" Third brother asked. "The one at Dongping isn't." She gave a sharp laugh, put 10 jin on it, and somehow only 9 come off. "You tell me whether it is honest." Second brother heard this and went inside to rummage through the wood pile. I asked, "Can you make one?" "A balance beam, yes. The weight is harder." By good fortune, Gu Xingzhou passed by. When he heard what we were doing, he took a bronze standard weight from his cart, one verified by the Brokers' Guild in Yushui town. Using that as his measure, second brother adjusted the scale again and again. At last, fourth brother hung 4 lines beside it, weighed before your eyes. See the measure yourself. Prices posted plainly. When trade is done, accounts are clear. Once that honest scale went up, Steward Liang appeared soon enough. He stood before our shelter and announced that anyone who dared trade with the Shen family could forget ever setting up a stall at Dongping again. Several timid farmers immediately gathered their goods. My stomach tightened. A market this young could not survive if everyone fled at once. Then Luo Chunyang put her shoulder pole back down. "I am selling here today." The old man who braided grass ropes slowly sat down again. Someone else returned a basket of vegetables to the ground. I said nothing about the will of the people or fair rules. I simply lowered my head and weighed Luo Chunyang's jar of radishes again. 12 jin for Liang. She smiled. Write it down. Only after I returned to my room that night did I realize the back of my clothes was soaked with sweat, not from heat. From fear, I was not confident every time I took a step. Sometimes, however, when you stand at the front and everyone is watching, you cannot be the first one to retreat. On the 3rd day after the honest scale was hung, someone came to test it. A peddler from another district brought a sack of damp beans mixed with fine sand and tried to trade them for our coarse flour at the price of good beans. Third brother almost let himself be talked around by the man's endless cries of brother. Sixth brother grabbed a handful of beans and warmed them beside a hot pan. As the dampness steamed away, the fine sand clumped into tiny hard grains and betrayed the trick at once. The peddler began shouting. Fifth brother rolled up his sleeves. Eldest brother tapped him once from behind. Hands down. I am only rolling my sleeves. When you roll your sleeves, you never look as though you mean to argue with words. Fourth brother brought out the bronze standard and weighed the sack again. Then he let the people around us scoop up the beans and inspect them with their own hands. The peddler had nothing left to say. He hoisted the sack onto his shoulder and left. Third brother was still angry. "We're just letting him walk away," I said. "Would you rather chase him down the road shouting after him? People should at least know who he is. It is enough that everyone knows this sack is bad. From now on, any large lot of beans gets checked for moisture and grit before the trade is made." Third brother was not entirely convinced, but he stopped arguing. It took a larger loss of his own before he truly understood. At the end of the month, when we checked the accounts, 20 jin of beans were missing, along with more than a dozen eggs and 3 jars of vegetables. I went through the ledger twice. "Where is the money?" Third brother said. "The Liu family took them on credit. They'll settle everything in 3 days. Did they sign anything? We've known them for ages." My heart sank. 3 days later, the Liu courtyard was locked. They had fled. That unpaid account could have fed our family for half a month. Third brother stood outside the empty courtyard, his face frighteningly pale. When we returned, he pushed the abacus toward me. "You handle the accounts from now on. I'll go work at the quarry and earn back what I lost." My temper flared at once. Duchenne men all think the answer to every mistake is running off to a quarry. The shelter went silent for a beat. Fifth brother had still been angry, but at that he let out an undignified snort of laughter. Third brother glared at him. I slapped the ledger back into third brother's arms. "You get cheated once, so you give up the work entirely. I cost the family grain. Then find a way to earn it back. How does hauling stones solve anything? Who will bargain with merchants? Who will deal with customers?" He said nothing. I did not give him a grand lecture either. At first light the next morning, I dragged him back to the abandoned Loo courtyard. If we could recover even a little, we would. In the end, we hauled home a broken chicken cage, half a stack of dry straw, and an old water jar. Third brother did not say a word on the road. When fifth brother saw us return, his tongue was as merciless as ever. Well, third master Shen has an eye for people indeed. You even managed to predict exactly what they'd leave behind after running away." Third brother's face flushed crimson. "Fifth," eldest brother barked. Fifth brother stiffened his neck. "Did I say anything untrue?" Third brother set down the water jar. Number at supper, the two of them refused to look at each other. By the time sixth brother served the last of the food, only one spoonful of tofu remained in the pot. Fifth brother reached for it with his chopsticks, paused, then scraped the whole spoonful into third brother's bowl. Third brother looked up. "What are you staring at?" "Nothing." "Aren't you going tomorrow to bargain with the other families who owe us money? Don't starve until your mouth won't open." Third brother lowered his head and ate. The next day, he rewrote our rules for selling on credit himself. No credit for new customers. Limited credit for old customers. Write down the amount. Write down the guarantor. When he finished, he asked me, "Will this do?" I read it once. Add one more line. What? People you know personally still sign. Third brother was silent for a moment. Then he laughed at himself. Dude done. After that, he remained the best talker in the family. But whenever someone slapped his chest and declared, "What need have we for paper between friends?" Third brother would smile pleasantly, push ink and paper across the table, and say, "Precisely because we're friends, let's write it clearly. No sense letting an account spoil the friendship." Later, Guxingzhou began carrying our goods to Yushui town. At first, it was only 10 jin of dried tofu and a few jars of pickled vegetables. Before long, he kept a fixed space on his cart for us. Whenever we settled accounts, I checked every line closely. Once he laughed and said, "Shopkeeper Shen, if one more layer of wood wears off my wheel, will you put that in your ledger too? If you are willing to pay for the next wheel yourself, I won't." He immediately pushed the ledger back toward me. Record it. That was how we became familiar. There was no gallant rescue, no moonlit confession. Most of the time, he came because of goods, and I sought him out because of prices. Once he offered to take 80 jin of dried tofu to Yushui town in a single shipment. At the time, that was the largest batch the Shen family could possibly make. I told him I would go back and calculate the risk. That night, I tossed and turned without sleep. The third time, I climbed out of bed to count the sacks in the storeroom. I found eldest brother sitting at the door sharpening a sickle, afraid of losing money. "Number, then why are you counting the bean sacks for the third time after midnight?" I went quiet. He asked, "If we truly lose the money, will we starve to death? Number, then try. What if it doesn't sell? Bring it home and eat it ourselves." I looked at him. Eldest brother said with a perfectly straight face, "Your sixth brother can make dried tofu 8 different ways. We can eat it all winter." I laughed for a long time. The next morning, all 80 jin went onto Guxingzhou's cart, only half sold. The reason was painfully simple. It was too thick and too bland. Third brother went from shop to shop in town asking why. The first 3 would not even let him through the door. At the 4th, the shopkeeper finally told him, If this is for men traveling long roads, slice it thinner and salt it more. They need something they can tuck into flatbread. Sixth brother came home and changed the recipe that very night. The first batch was far too salty. Fifth brother bit into a piece and his whole face puckered. Sixth brother, is this meant to preserve the food or preserve the man eating it? Sixth brother chased him halfway across the yard with a cooking spatula. The second batch was right. The fifth shop agreed to take only 10 gin 3 days later. It had sold out. They came back asking for 30. This time the answer had not come from me. Third brother had run it down. Sixth brother had changed the food. I found myself liking that feeling more and more before. Whenever something happened, everyone had looked at me and waited for me to decide. Now, more often than not, I simply sat at the table and listened. Second brother told us which farm tools broke most often. Third brother told us what sold quickly in town. Fourth brother pointed out which agreements still needed another clause. Fifth brother reported which stone outside the door had come loose. Sixth brother complained that the chickens were eating more but laying fewer eggs. Seventh brother said a new merchant route had opened to the east. At last eldest brother asked, "Agnon, who hasn't spoken?" I raised my hand. Mean. Fifth brother said, "You could speak less." I snatched an abacus bead and threw it at him. The whole yard erupted in laughter. The thing that nearly crushed the breath out of us came with 4 straight days of rain. On the 4th night, half the old post station shelter collapsed. The beam came down with a thunderous crash into the mud. I woke to shouting everywhere. Shelves had fallen. Beans entrusted to us for storage, eggs, grass rope, and jars of pickles rolled through the dirt. A stretch of the old road to the south had been washed out by runoff from the hills. I stood in the rain as if I had frozen solid. Months we had built everything one fistful at a time. In one night it was all soaked in mud. For a long while my mind went completely blank. This time eldest brother did not ask me what to do. He shouted first. Second, fifth, brace the beam. Seventh, move the dry rations and ledgers to the eastern corner. Third, find the list of stored goods. Sixth, see what food can still be saved. Every one moved at once. I was still standing there when he shoved me lightly between the shoulders. Gee, check the goods in the storeroom. Only then did I come back to myself. And in that moment I understood something. I was no longer dragging this family forward by myself. I was even allowed to panic for a little while. They would hold the line until I could stand again. Luo Chunyang came through the rain. The moment she saw her shattered pickle jars, all the color left her face. How do we settle this? I did not answer at once, for the first time. With so many people watching, I stood silent for nearly the time it takes to drink half a cup of tea. If we repaid everyone in full, we could not afford it. If we pushed the whole loss onto the owners, the trust we had spent months earning would vanish. Third brother spoke softly. We bear half. I looked at him. He nodded. No one invited a storm, but the goods were in our keeping. Fourth brother added, from now on, we can offer 2 kinds of storage. The cheaper one, if disaster strikes, owner and keeper share the loss. If someone pays a few extra coppers for safekeeping, the Shen family bears a greater share. Again, it was not my idea. I let out a breath. We'll do that. Luo Chunyang heard us out. Instead of demanding money, she rolled up her sleeves. Mend the shelter first. I've 2 old beams behind my house. They were taken down from an old shed. I'll bring them this afternoon. Simonon brought planks. Simonels brought thatch. Another brought old bricks. Fourth brother recorded every piece. Eldest brother arranged work shifts. Second brother changed the pitch of the roof, so rain would run off better. Fifth brother tried to raise every post in a single day. Eldest brother stopped him with a hand on his shoulder. Having strength doesn't mean you must spend all of it today. Fifth brother froze. That was something I used to say to eldest brother. No, he had learned to say it to someone else. The worst problem was 2 sacks of soybeans soaked through by rain. Sixth brother crouched over them and sniffed for a long while. They haven't soured yet, but they'll spoil if we only spread them out to dry. Tofu flashed through my mind. But this time I did not immediately claim I knew how to make it. What if we grind them into milk and try? Sixth brother looked at me. You know how. A little. How little? I know tofu comes from soy milk. Fifth brother happened to be walking past and nearly stepped straight into the mud. That counts as knowing, I glared at him. You know more? Then you do it. In the end, Luo Chunyang brought over a jar of old sour whey. Her mother's family had made tofu before. The first batch failed and broke apart, like white porridge. Fifth brother lifted a bowl. Still edible, sixth brother snapped. Everything is edible to you. The second batch was pressed too hard and came out dry enough to chew like firewood. The third finally worked. When we lifted the cloth, tender white tofu steamed beneath it. Fifth brother reached out with a filthy hand. Sixth brother slapped it away. Wash your hands. I only want one piece. Wash your hands. Fifth brother surrendered and went to fetch water. I sat beside the stove watching everyone argue around that slab of tofu, and suddenly I smiled. The rain had not fully stopped. The roof still leaked in places. We still owed people for damaged goods, yet the shelter was warm that day. The scent of beans mingled with wood smoke, and somehow it felt like a hand reaching into the worst of our days and pulling us back toward the light. Later, soy milk tofu and dried tofu became some of the best-selling things beside the old courier road. That storm smashed half our home. It also cracked open a new livelihood. After we rebuilt the shelter, we began holding a small market on the 5th and 15th days of every month. 17 stalls came the first time. The Liang family could not ignore us for long. Steward Liang arrived with men to collect what he called a ground fee, claiming that the Liang family had maintained the trade roads in the area and anyone who set up a stall owed them payment. Fourth brother held out his hand. Show me the county writ. Steward Liang sneered. It is an old country custom. Luo Chunyang shoved her purse straight back into her robe. Then I'll follow a new custom. No one paid. The very next day, Dongping Market began buying eggs, mixed beans, and fresh vegetables at inflated prices. Nearly a third above the usual rate, cash on the spot or Little Huayi Market emptied almost overnight. Fifth brother paced the yard in agitation. Then we raise our prices too. Third brother flicked the abacus. We can afford that once, not 10 times. Then, what do we sell? Win's sixth brother happened to pass carrying a fresh slab of tofu. He looked at the tofu, then at the salted eggs and pickled vegetables on the table. If they want beans, let them buy beans. Fifth brother stared at me. I asked sixth brother, how many things can one jin of beans become in your hands? He thought for a moment. Soy milk tofu? Dried tofu. Fry it and I can make tofu puffs too. Fifth brother snorted. Then why in hell are we fighting them for raw beans? The whole family went quiet for one beat. Fourth brother frowned. Could you replace the last part with something more civilized? Fifth brother said. Number. So we did not chase Dongping's prices. When nearby beans became scarce, we bought from villages farther away. When we could not compete for fresh eggs, we made salted eggs. When radishes fetched poor prices, we sliced and dried them, then mixed them with seasoning. Second brother took on more work repairing farm tools. Fourth brother set a table beside the shelter and earned coppers writing letters and contracts for people. Third brother carried samples from shop to shop in town. Seventh brother rode roads with Gu Xingzhou, learning the roads and noting which places had shortages and which had surplus goods. During the hardest half-month, the ground in front of our shelter grew so quiet we could hear the chickens scratching the dirt. Fifth brother polished the empty stall boards every day until they were cleaner than his own face. I knew he was afraid. I said nothing. I was afraid too. One night I secretly counted the money box 4 times. Sixth brother came in carrying a late-night bowl. Is some money missing? Number. Then why are you counting it? I like the sound of copper coins. He stared at me. Then he set a bowl of warm tofu pudding in front of me. Fine, listen while you eat. A month later, the trouble with the Liang family's plan began to show. The fresh vegetables and eggs they had bought at high prices piled up in their warehouses. As the weather warmed, The goods spoiled quickly. To cut their losses, they began deducting this fee and that charge when settling with farmers. In the end, people discovered that the high prices painted on the signs did not mean more coin in their hands. Slowly, they returned to us. The next time Steward Liang passed the old road, a line had formed in front of our honest scale. Third brother stood beside me and murmured, "He spent a great deal of money teaching everyone how to count." I could not help smiling. Steward Liang happened to look over. I immediately wiped the smile from my face, not because I feared him. I simply refused to let him see how pleased I was. I could hold a grudge rather well 10 days before the autumn harvest. Tian Baoquan posted another labor notice this time. It was not only my 7 brothers. Even Gu Xingzhou's cart was requisitioned under the pretext of helping haul material for a road between the Dongping warehouse and the ferry. The timing was almost too perfect. If my brothers left, no one would manage the market. If Gu Xingzhou's cart left, outside goods could not reach us. Eldest brother asked, "Shall we petition the county office to change the dates?" I looked at the labor ledger, already filled with months of entries, then at the western section of the old Courier Road. Before I could speak, 7th brother put a finger on a shallow gully marked on the map. "Build a bridge here." 2nd brother looked up. 7th continued, "If we repair the western road, the trip to Yushui town becomes 4 li shorter, and no one has to pass Dongping Ferry." 4th brother immediately picked up the thought. "If we petition the county to count repairs to the western road as this season's public labor." 3rd brother rattled his abacus. "Plenty of households nearby would be willing to work. Everyone saves money once the road is open." Eldest brother looked at me. "What do you think?" For some reason, I wanted to laugh. They used to ask me what we should do. No, the answers were already scattered all over the table in 7 different voices. "I think," I said, flattening the map, "we should eat first, then go to the county office." 5th brother stared. "What? I thought you were going to say something formidable." "Would I sound more formidable on an empty stomach?" From the back, 6th brother shouted, "Food's ready." The county soon approved our petition to repair the old Courier Road ourselves. If the work passed inspection, our labor days would count toward the season's public service. At first, many villagers were afraid to offend Tian Baoquan and would not put their thumbprints on the petition. Luo Chunyang was the first. She could not do heavy labor, so she pledged 3 days of meals and 1 old beam. The rope-braiding old man was second. Then, little by little, more people came. The Liang family responded by buying every piece of new timber they could find in the surrounding villages at high prices. 2 households that had promised us main beams returned our deposits and backed out. 5th brother grabbed a hammer and stormed toward the road. This time, I was not the one who stopped him. 7th brother threw both arms around his waist. "If you go there now, they'll only accuse you of starting trouble." "Then what? We abandon the bridge? They can buy every new beam. Can they buy every old one?" 5th brother stopped. 7th brother spun around and ran. 3 days later, he returned with 5 cartloads of the strangest collection of salvaged timber imaginable. Old boat planks, broken gateposts, short beams from dismantled houses, cartboards, used nails, thick rope. 2nd brother crouched in front of the heap for an entire day. Without long beams, he changed the bridge into several short spans supported by more stone piers. He altered the design. Eldest brother assigned the workers. 7th brother found the materials. 3rd brother counted the costs. 4th brother recorded the labor days. 6th brother cooked the meals. 5th brother led people into the water to build the piers. Somehow, I became the least busy person there one day. I stood by the road doing nothing in particular when 5th brother walked past with a stone on his shoulder. "Little sister, no work to do." Who says, "Then what are you doing?" "Watching you work. Watching costs money." I picked up a pebble and tossed it at his feet. He ran off laughing. On the 8th day of construction, another storm came. Tian Baoquan arrived at the bridge with constables. He claimed the flood season created an emergency and ordered us to stop work immediately and report to Dongping Ferry. Eldest brother stood in the rain. He did not turn to ask me what to say. "We have not evaded public labor." He pointed to the county writ. We are carrying out a road project already approved by the county office. The bridge is still open in the middle. We cannot abandon it now." Chen Baoquan moved forward as if to seize someone. Fifth brother's fingers tightened around the handle of his hammer. I pressed his hand down. "Don't hand him an excuse." Fourth brother had already unfolded the document. Third brother raised his voice and read Tian Baoquan's order aloud before everyone, making it plain that the headman was demanding they abandon a county-approved public road project. The villagers working around us lifted their own wooden labor tallies one after another. In the end, Tian Baoquan did not dare force the matter. That night, dozens of people from the village worked in shifts without stopping. When the final bridge plank dropped into place, fifth brother sat straight down in the mud. Sixth brother chased him with ginger broth and forced the bowl into his hands. Fifth brother complained even while drinking, "It is scalding." Sixth brother said, "Then be scalded and drink it." At dawn, the rain stopped. Guxing Zhou drove a mule cart loaded heavily with stone onto the new bridge. When the wheels rolled over the first span, my palms were slick with sweat. Second span, third. At last, the cart came down safely on the far bank. Seventh brother stood at the bridgehead and shouted until his voice cracked. "It holds." I did not cry. I only looked down at my hands. 3 months earlier, these hands had been afraid to take an extra half piece of flatbread. Now they rested on the railing of a bridge. Cool beneath my palms, solid, real on. The day the county came to inspect the bridge, the head of the Liang family, Liang Wanchang, arrived first. He was far more composed than Steward Liang. After inspecting the bridge, he offered me terms. If we closed our little market, the Liang family would buy the Shen family's tofu, dried tofu, and mountain goods at the going market price. They would even cover several years of our public road levies. "Miss Shen," he said, "your family already has the means to live well. Why burden yourselves with everyone else's affairs?" I looked at the paper. For one instant, I was tempted. Truly tempted. We had been poor. Poor enough that 3 dan of grain had nearly bought a full year of eldest brother's labor. Now someone had laid an easy road at my feet and said the Shen family need only look after itself. I lowered my eyes and studied the offer for a long while. Then I pushed it back across the table. "Master Liang, our market has never stopped anyone from trading at Dongping." He looked at me without speaking. "If your scales are honest and your fees are clear, people will still go there," I said. "All we did was repair one more road and hang one more scale. Let people choose for themselves which road they want to take." At last, his expression darkened. "Anping County has no need for a second Dongping market." I thought for a moment. "We never meant to become a second Dongping." "What do you mean?" "We are Qingxi Hollow. That is enough." Liang Wanchang said nothing more. Tian Baoquan arrived soon after and tried to accuse us of resisting public labor. Fourth brother simply brought out the master ledger of labor days from the past several months and began reading it line by line. Which household worked on which day, on which road, what work they had done, and which labor days had never appeared in the official register at all, though all of them had somehow been spent around the Liang family's private warehouses. One by one, villagers raised their wooden tallies. When the county road clerk arrived, he inspected the bridge first and the accounts second. The bridge passed, the western road was fit for carts. Every laborer who had worked on it received credit toward the season's public service. As for Tian Baoquan, he lost the authority to approve labor records by himself. From then on, households in the township would take turns recording the work, and a duplicate copy would be sent to the county each month. No one laid a finger on him. Fifth brother stood watching for a long while. Then he leaned toward fourth brother and whispered, "So we truly didn't have to hit anyone." Fourth brother gave him a sidelong look. "You have only just discovered this." I mostly thought hitting people was quicker. "Which is why you used to need the most apology letters written for you." The two stared at each other for a moment. Then both laughed. The second day after the new bridge opened was the great autumn market. Before dawn, a string of lamps already shone on the far side of the bridge. Grain sellers, buyers of mountain goods, Men trading farm tools, cloth merchants, short-haul caravans, cart after cart rolled in. Sixth brother cooked 2 enormous pots of meat porridge. When I lifted a bowl, I almost asked without thinking whether there was enough. He raised the lid. Look for yourself. The pot was still full. All at once, I remembered fifth brother 3 months earlier, his hand resting on the rim before he dared serve himself a second bowl. Now, no one had to study anyone else's face before deciding whether they were allowed one more mouthful. I stood holding my porridge for so long that sixth brother asked, "Aren't you eating?" "I am." "Then why are you staring into space?" "It is hot. You haven't even tasted it." I lowered my head and blew across the bowl so he would not keep asking. In our first year, those 12 mu of wasteland did not turn into miraculous fields. The beans in the east yielded only about 7 parts in 10 of what we had hoped. A corner of the northern millet rotted because the water drained too slowly. The western 5 mu still had enough stones to torment any sane person, but we had grain for winter. That was enough. After winter came, second brother made several narrow hoes that took less strength to use than our old ones. Sixth brother enlarged the chicken run and carried a little notebook everywhere, recording which hens ate too much and laid too little. Third brother handled the debt ledger so often its edges turned ragged. Fourth brother wrote letters for farmers beside the shelter and read contracts aloud for those who could not read. Seventh brother began making short trips with Gushing Joe. Every time he returned, he threw strange things onto our table. A bunch of wild scallions, 2 crooked gourds, a knot of pine root that could burn for half the night. Third brother always complained, "Do you go out to carry goods or to collect rubbish?" Yet, when sixth brother made soup that evening, third brother was always the first one to chop the wild scallions. Eldest brother changed too. Before, whenever someone was tired, his only answer had been, "I'll do it." Now he would say, "Fifth, rest half an hour. Seventh, take his place. Second, your hand is shaking, so you are not touching that saw again today. Third, the accounts can wait until morning, sleep first." Aunt's eldest brother fell ill himself and still tried to get out of bed. Sixth brother carried medicine into the room. Eldest brother said, "Leave it there." I happened to be passing the doorway. "It'll taste more bitter once it is cold." Eldest brother sat up at once and drank the whole bowl in one swallow. The room went strangely silent. Fifth brother was the first to turn his face toward the wall so no one would see him laughing. Eldest brother glared at me. Out. Once I was outside, I laughed so hard I nearly folded in half. By the second spring, the soil on our wasteland had begun to darken. By the third year, even the hardest western plots were planted with beans and millet. Qingxi Hollow's little market grew from twice a month to 4 times a month. The old courier shelter was expanded twice. The eastern side became a goods shed. The western side was for cart and tool repairs. In the middle, our honest scale still hung in its old place. Second brother tried several times to replace the weathered signboard over the entrance. The words are nearly worn away. I refused. You can still read them. Fourth brother passed by and glanced up. Of the 4 words in hot water, "Rest your feet," half the last character is gone. Then paint it again. I will not. "Why, you complained I wrote too slowly when I made it." I stared at him. "You have remembered that for 3 years, fourth brother said mildly. "I have a good memory." That was when I realized our whole family was rather gifted at holding grudges. The day Gushingzhou brought his 3rd mule cart into Qingxi Hollow, I was inside working an abacus. He dropped a stack of cargo slips on the table. 20 cartloads this trip. Can you take them?" I looked at the price first, too high. "I have only just arrived, and your first words are still about price. Would you prefer I ask whether you were cold on the road?" He considered it. That would do. I looked up at him. His cloak was powdered with road dust. Mud crusted the edges of his boots. He did, in truth, look as though he had traveled a long way. I hesitated. "Were you cold?" Before Gu Xingzhou could answer, sixth brother shouted from the back, "Master Gu, there is food for you." Gu Xingzhou smiled. Not anymore. I lowered my head to the accounts again, then stopped blocking my light. He picked up the cargo slips and carried them toward the kitchen. That was how things had always been between us: goods, roads, prices, sometimes the weather. No one needed to give it another name. I had never planned to marry either. Over the years, people had tried to arrange matches for me. I turned them all down. It was not because I distrusted everyone. It was simply that every morning when I opened my eyes, there were fields to inspect, accounts to settle, goods to receive, and 7 brothers who might begin arguing at any moment over eggs, timber, debts, or whose turn it was to scrub the cooking pot. My days were already full to the brim. I liked them that way. One spring, 3 years after we first arrived, several newly relocated households came to Qingxi Hollow. They were all adults. They carried little baggage and stood by the road with guarded expressions. Looking at them, I remembered the day we had arrived. Eldest brother now helped the township settle newcomers. No one could trick people into vague year-long labor contracts merely by talking faster than they could think. Fourth brother explained every clause of each agreement one by one. Third brother showed them stalls they could rent. Second brother sorted through the old storehouse for usable farm tools. Fifth and seventh carried timber to repair shelters. Sixth brother still said the same thing he had always said: eat first. And he filled every bowl generously. I came from the granary carrying a sack of carefully sorted bean seed. Eldest brother saw me and suddenly asked, "Jehei, do you remember 3 years ago?" "Remember what?" "I nearly went to Blackstone Quarry for 3 dan of grain." My steps stopped. I asked, "If someone offered you 3 dan now for a year of labor, would you go?" Before eldest brother could answer, fifth brother shouted from across the yard, "Let him dare." Seventh brother added, "We'd drag him back by the legs." Fourth brother frowned. "Can you say that with a little refinement?" Third brother hugged his ledger and laughed. Eldest brother earns more than that grain in a day's skilled work now. Sixth brother poked his head out of the kitchen. "Stop standing there talking. The porridge is getting cold." Eldest brother looked at all of them. At last, he smiled. "You heard them." I smiled too. Wind came across the new bridge. Cartwheels rolled over the stone road. Abacus beads clicked in quick succession. In the kitchen, steam nudged a pot lid until it danced softly against the rim. The old doorboard still hung above the entrance: hot water. "Rest your feet." Rain and wind had faded the words, but they could still be read. I stood in the doorway and looked down at the bean seed in my hands. 3 years ago, the 8 of us had wanted nothing more than to reach the next meal without having to give our portion to someone else. Now there was grain in the storehouse, seedlings in the fields, food in the pot, and work of our own for every one of us. Fifth brother shouted from the yard, "Shenji Hei, did you hide the last piece of flatbread again?" I spun around at once. Who says it was the last piece? Sixth brother's voice drifted ominously from the kitchen. "Because one piece is missing from the pot," third brother said. "Where did she hide it this time?" Seventh brother guessed. "Under the ledgers," fourth brother snapped. "Do not rummage through my account papers." Eldest brother sighed. "Eat first." I hugged the sack of bean seed to my chest and bolted for the granary. All 7 of them came after me. Spring wind swept through Qingxi Hollow. In the fields, new shoots had just broken the soil, tender and bright, and our days were still growing too. The story ends with a full granary, a bridge that holds, and 7 brothers chasing their sister, because she hid the last flatbread again. But the real turning point isn't the coins or the bridge. It is the moment Shenji Hei stops pretending. She sits in the doorway and says, "I don't know." And the sky doesn't fall. Her brothers step forward. They redesign the bridge, rewrite the credit rules, keep the books, cook the meals, run the roads. She doesn't save them. She wakes them up, and then they carry each other. The story gives them no miracle. The stony wasteland doesn't turn golden. Beans rot, the market nearly collapses. And she writes her own failure into the ledger. Drainage insufficient. Beans planted in error. That line is the real victory. She finally stops performing invincibility. And there is one detail I can't forget. Even when the grain stores are full, she still hides half a flatbread under her pillow. Sixth brother finds it hard as wood and doesn't ask what is wrong. He steams it soft and puts it back in her hands. That is the heart of the story. Love isn't carrying someone. It is staying close while they learn to put down the old hunger. The sign over the shelter never changes. Hot water, rest your feet. A family with nothing chose to offer something small, honest, and useful. That was enough. So here is my question. What are you still holding up alone because you are afraid it will collapse if you stop? Who is standing close enough to help if you could just say, I don't know this time. Hold it with me. Tell me in the comments. I am Xiao Yu Mei. Every bowl be full enough for a second serving. May every honest scale stay true. May someone find what you've hidden under your pillow and hand it back, warm, without asking why. See you in the next story.